Hello everybody, it's great to have you again back on our channel, Relationship Builders Forum. My name is Amara.
And my name is Gospel.
And if you are just joining us, if you're new on this channel, please hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and as you listen to this video, if you find it really useful, give us a thumbs up, give us, a share it with your friends, and also put the comment on the comment section below. It's great to have you join our conversation today.
Today we'll be talking about signs that your marriage needs help. Maybe you're wondering, I'm married and I'm enjoying my marriage. There are seasons in marriage. This may not be useful to you at the moment, but you need to know when there is a crack. You need to know what to do to safeguard your marriage from going from blissful, wonderful, enjoyable to a point where you'll be wondering, how did we get here?
Now, maybe you're already married and is your marriage in trouble? There are a number of reasons. There's a myriad of reasons as to whether or not your marriage is really in danger. How do you identify this? The thing is, it is really important that you always do a ring check. You do a temperature check on your marriage. So you don't take the other person for granted, right? Marriage is beautiful, but it takes work. So we will be having this conversation to delve deeper into some of the underlying signs that your marriage is in trouble.
One of the signs that your marriage could be in trouble or may need help is when there is no emotional connection between you and your spouse. You guys started so well, maybe before now you couldn't even let go of each other. You wanted the hug, the kiss, the cuddle, and it was all smiles, all happiness, Remember when we did our wedding? Joy all the way.
Yep.
But now you're wondering what's going on. There is no connection anymore. You struggle to, have a conversation. You struggle to enjoy the company of your spouse. It shows that you might need help.
Yeah. So building up for what you said, I think the second reason is around communication. So you talked about you want to be in each other's company, but then you don't even want to talk to each other. You don't want to communicate with the other person. You're constantly on your phone, constantly scrolling. I'm not saying it's bad to do that, but the thing is you've come to a point where you guys are like two strangers in a house. So you're not speaking to each other, or you only speak to each other out of necessity, not basically because you enjoy talking to each other. I think that is really serious, and that shows that your marriage needs help.
Obviously, communication is the lifeblood of any relationship. Not just talking about superficial things. You have to have one-to-one connection and deep level communication. And when you do that, you're vulnerable, you're open to each other. And when that piece is missing, when that element is missing in your marriage, where you do your own thing, you don't share your heart, you don't share your challenges, you don't even share or appreciate each other, then something is definitely wrong.
The third sign is anger and resentment. Wow. I know there are times you get angry with your spouse, but if it is constant, you've come to a point where you are so angry, you hate the sound of your spouse's voice, or you don't even want them to be around. You found them so annoying, you're so resentful towards them, then that is a problem, because you've come to a point where maybe there's a little argument, it has built up, and it has become quite significant in your relationship, that you're so angry, you're so resentful towards each other, and you don't want to see each other. You don't want to be around each other. You treat each other with contempt. That is serious.
Yeah, definitely that's serious. And resentment doesn't just happen overnight. It could be as a result of things that have happened over and over again, a long time, lack of forgiveness. He has done something to you. You found it difficult to forgive. Maybe he has repeated the same thing over and over, and now you're building that resentment. Probably because you're not sharing, you're not saying, this is what I don't like in terms of what you've done. That builds resentment. And when this is not handled, your marriage could be leading or heading to the rock.
Yeah.
And that's not a good place to be.
Absolutely. You talked about one of the things that you mentioned, I thought to highlight, is the fact that one of the things that could lead to resentment is your significant other might be drawing your attention to something that might not be right for your relationship, and it's ignored or it's not taken into consideration. You get the person to build up resentment towards you because they feel you're shutting down, you're not listening to them, you're not communicating why you're going ahead with whatever it is you're going ahead with. And I think that the fundamental part in terms of resentment and being angry or having an attitude of anger towards your spouse is around communication, because you build this over time. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that happens maybe one-off. It's something that is a chain of events possibly have led to that point where you are in your relationship, and that needs to be checked.
Very true. And sometimes resentment could be because you've done something that is emotionally damaging, very painful to your spouse, and he or she is trying to grasp the whole thing, how to deal with the impact of what you've done. Okay. And if you want your spouse to move from the point of resentment to a place where he or she will be happy to communicate and share with you again, you need to give him or her time. You need to, if it's something you know you've done, you have to take responsibility for that and then seek opportunity for resolving it. And the person needs to know that actually you are remorseful for what you've done and you've repented. You're not going to do it again. Resentment happens when one thing is done, it's done again repeatedly, and this person is hurting.
Yeah.
How do you feel when your spouse is hurting? Maybe you're the one hurting. So if your marriage has come to a point where you're hurting, you feel like running away, you feel so bitter in your heart towards your spouse, I think you need serious help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Another sign that your marriage is in trouble is lies and deception. Now, drawing from what you've said with respect to resentment, because a lot of times people become resentful, what happens is they withdraw. They become, they just take on their own personal space. They want to be by themselves. They don't want anybody around them. And I think that this is fundamentally one of the major signs that your marriage is in trouble. So where you don't want to be in the company of your spouse, that is in itself, you need to understand what is the underlying, why am I this resentful to the point where I want to be alone? And do you know that just you being asked by your spouse, how are you doing or how are you feeling, it could lead to you lying about your emotion. Oh, I'm fine, I'm okay, everything is okay, everything is cool.
Could you call that lying about your emotions? Sometimes people want to protect their hearts and they don't want to share.
I do understand, but this is like, it's very subtle because it's just a matter of time. You begin to build up, you begin to hide things from your spouse, you begin to lie about certain things that you, or maybe activities that you are engaged in by yourself. You don't want to talk about them. And it's just a subtle thing, but before you know what's happening, it begins to build up. Because this is someone you don't want to spend more time with, and maybe you want to spend time on other things, but then you don't want to disclose what you're spending time on. And then this leads to you lying to your spouse about, your life, basically what you want to do within the relationship or how you feel within the relationship. And then you just kind of lead on, everything is okay, everything is fine. But that's not
Everything
the
is not
real.
okay, everything
That
is
is not real. You're not showing. You're only living a false life.
Yeah, that's a part of deception. Even though sometimes people don't do it directly, they don't plan to deceive.
Yeah.
Maybe for some reason people may want to protect themselves. Maybe they've shared their emotions before and they were taken for granted.
Yeah.
And now why do I need to tell you how I feel when I told you before how I felt and you didn't do anything reasonable? And sometimes some couples can even take advantage of their spouses when they tell them how they feel.
Absolutely.
But when we talk about, like you're saying, about lies and deception, if it's a character flaw in terms of you not being honest with your spouse, it's like both of us living here and I walk away, I move out of the house, you don't know where I've gone to. And when I am back and you ask me, where have you gone to? I went to point A and I'm telling you I went to point B. That's a lie. And when you find out that your spouse cannot be trusted, that is a crack on the relationship.
That's true.
So when people start deceiving each other, living a pseudo life, living in deception in terms of your finance, in terms of your life in general, that could lead to your spouse losing trust in you, and no relationship can be built without trust. And when there is no trust in your marriage, believe me, it needs help.
Yeah. And just maybe just to point out something quite different in terms of the lies and deception, could be the fact that when you feel like your marriage is no longer a safe space, right? Some people begin to seek a safe space somewhere
Elsewhere,
else.
yeah.
So you seek a safe space somewhere else, but you don't disclose that space to your significant other because you feel that there might be a problem if this person understands that, I'm truly confiding in somebody else, or I've got a safe space where I go out there to sort of be myself, let my hair down. And then it is just a subtle way. And before you know what's happening, you might begin to have feelings for that person. And then this is something that needs a cover up and more cover up.
secrecy and the rest
then,
of it, yeah.
exactly. So this thing begins to, it begins to fester in the relationship. And before you know what's happening, it's not just a crack, but it's basically the relationship is breaking down completely.
Very important point you've made there. And I also want to say that once you see or notice that your level of intimacy with your spouse is not what it used to be, believe me, there's a crack in your marriage. Whatever may be the factor leading to that, not necessarily because you guys are having issues, maybe because you're so engrossed with work, maybe you're engrossed with the children or taking care of other factors or other issues. You're placing priorities above your spouse, above your marriage. Something is wrong. It means you have to, you call it rain check. You have to check your marriage, do a kind of
Assessment.
reflection to know where are we at this point? How have we gotten to this point where we don't feel emotional connection, we don't feel the level of intimacy that we used to feel. And sometimes it could even lead to the point of not having physical intimacy.
Attraction.
Or you do have sex with your spouse out of obligation,
Yeah.
not because you enjoy it, and you don't feel that attraction anymore. Remember when you guys started, this is someone you couldn't,
It couldn't do without.
you were always
Yeah.
seeking out to reach out to this person,
And just be with them,
be
spend
with
time
them. You
with
spend hours. You love being in their presence.
Yeah,
It was
exactly.
happy moments. And even as we talk now, you can remember the times you guys started and how beautiful it was. And now you are at a point where you can't feel all of those
Yeah, you
again.
drifted apart.
You drifted apart. There are reasons for that, and that's a sign that your marriage needs help.
Another sign that your relationship could be in trouble or needs help is when you begin to experience some forms of abuse in your relationship. It could be verbal abuse, it could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse, right? I mean, some people have been in that space. We talk about these things time and time and time again, but people still get caught in that sort of situation where they're being abused verbally to a point where their self-esteem, their self-worth is chipped away, where you came into the relationship with a very healthy self-image of yourself, and you find that as you stayed on in the relationship, you are a shadow of yourself. I mean, nobody deserves to be in such an environment,
Right.
but that shows that there are serious issues in your relationship. If you are in a relationship where the other person is not building you up, the other person is not cheering you on, the other person is not supporting you in a way that enables you to grow, in a way that enables you to develop to a fine woman that you've always been, or a fine man that you've always been, because men can also face the same, or you've been in a situation whereby somebody is constantly taking your emotions for granted, right? Or just trashing your emotions. You give so much love, but you don't get back. I mean, we talk about giving 100 and 100%. It's not a 50-50 situation right here. But sometimes we need that, when you're giving so much and you're not even getting at all, not even a drop, not even a slice of love.
That's
then
a bad place to be.
that is a bad place to be, right? And you feel so drained emotionally. And I mean, when you think about physical abuse and the fact that some people still lay hands on their spouse, whether it's the man or whether it's the woman, it is something that, you think about. This person is someone you have professed so much love for. How did the relationship get to the point where you start hitting each other?
Wow, you've really dealt with this hugely. And I also want to point out to the fact that sometimes people abuse others, not physical now, because obviously if you abuse someone physically, you must be conscious of what you're doing. But then there is this unconscious element of emotional and verbal abuse that people do without knowing. Maybe because of how they talk to others, they've not learned the concept of speaking in love, speaking in the right way. You say, oh, this is how I was brought up. This is how I know to share. When I feel it, I say it. It doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It doesn't matter how it makes the other person feel.
Yeah. And I also want to add to that, because some people have experienced so much of that, and it's what is their reality that they don't know how to. They don't realize how damaged they are in terms of, taking on so much verbal abuse that's the only thing that they
know
give back.
to express. Yeah, and obviously you need help in as much as your marriage needs help, because this is like you becoming a prophet of doom, where you act to self-destruct your marriage, to self-destruct your wonderful relationship that you built over time because of how you use your words. Words are powerful, and when we speak words, we can't retrieve them. And for some people, words spoken, can build them up, or it can destroy them. So marriage is a platform where we use words to affirm our spouse, to appreciate them, to make them become the best that they are supposed to be. It's not a place where we destroy them with the things we say. And sometimes emotional abuse may not even involve words. Could involve silent treatment. When someone wants to share with you your issues, how you feel, you've locked them out, you don't let them come in, maybe there is a conflict, rather than discuss it, you just shut down, you block them off, and you know that is making your spouse to feel terrible, and you don't care. How do you love someone and treat the person the same way? So silent treatment, when it becomes a part of your marriage, shows that you guys need help.
Drawing from what you've said with respect to silent treatment, I think that sometimes when people get to that point where they shut off and don't see or recognize their significant other in whatever shape, form, whatever it is, I don't care, I'm in my own zone kind of situation, most times that happens due to some deep-seated issues that has not been or haven't been diagnosed in the relationship. So you find out that someone has been carrying quite a lot of weight or unresolved issues over the past, or maybe things that haven't been spoken of, or maybe things that have been dealt with in a way that wasn't quite dealt with, and they decide, what, there's no point, right? There's no point talking about this, because I would just be on my own, do my own thing, because they don't even care about me, right? Now, these issues need to be resolved. They need to come to the surface. And sometimes you need to have some very, very difficult and uncomfortable conversations with your other significant other or with your spouse. Really, really important that you talk about these deep-seated issues, because we cannot allow it to fester in your relationship. It colors every single thing that you do. It colors your emotion. It colors, why would, for example, there are so many issues, and depending on where you are in the season of your marriage, because marriage, you've got to navigate different seasons, right? So maybe something that came through earlier on in your relationship, it could be something serious. There's so many examples. There could be examples around you losing trust in your other person, maybe because you realized there was some sort of relationship they had prior that they didn't disclose to you, and then you found out about it, in a way that you were not supposed to find out. There might be other things. It might be things around finances. It might be things around, just some habits that you discovered, and you felt that, wow, this is like a no, it's a deal breaker for me. I can't deal with this in my relationship. Now, these issues need to be discussed. They need to be resolved, or else it's gonna lead to a lot of problems later on.
I think what we are saying in effect is, if you are at that point in your marriage where you feel your marriage is frustrating your life, your marriage is suffocating your life, you feel like running away from this marriage. The only reason you're there now is because of social voices or what people will say. You're there now because of maybe financial dependence or what you guys have built together, which you might lose if you leave the marriage, or because you have children that you need to take care of and you're planning your escape route when all these are sorted. I just want you to know that obviously you need help, and help doesn't necessarily have to come from outside. It starts with both of you. One of the things you need to start with is to engage in deep level communication. You have to talk about issues. You have to start that conversation. Like you said, it's going to be a tough, a hard conversation, but you need to start with it. I wouldn't know how you feel about me if you don't tell me. And the way you put it across may also determine how I too will approach it. So not from an aggressive point of view, not from a judgmental point of view, but when you have solution-oriented approach to it, then we can sit down on the table and talk about the way forward.
Absolutely.
We know that it takes two to tango. It takes two of you to make the marriage work. If you try your best and the other person is not putting in any effort, it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
But then if you engage and have that collaboration with your spouse, it's a teamwork, and you to work on it, obviously there is no level of challenge or barrier or limitation or issues that you cannot deal with.
Now, sometimes the both of you engage in trying to resolve it, but you're kind of struggling with doing that, because sometimes people get to that point where the issues in the relationship has been built up to a point where you might need to seek professional help. You need to speak to a professional, someone who understands the situation, someone who's been trained about the situation to help you both, not to solve the problem for you, but to help to work with you both to navigate that situation together. And I know that so many professionals out there, myself and my husband Gospel, we're so passionate about this. This is something we've done for a lot of couples. We've been able to see them navigate seasons in their relationship successfully. And I always say that, there are difficulties, there are challenges with every relationship, but I don't think there is no challenge that is so difficult to surmount. But the thing is, it only takes the two of you to agree that you see this mountain, we're going to crush it,
yes.
right? So, we're going to be there. We're going to be supporting you. We provide that sort of atmosphere. We provide the environment for you to talk about these things and possibly give you some perspective on how you can navigate this together. And I'm sure there's so many other counselors, there's so many other therapists out there that could definitely help you on this journey together. I know, being from a part of the world that I am, being an African myself, it is difficult sometimes in our people from our community to be very open about things like this to somebody else and say, oh, how can I go to a professional to acknowledge that I need help? The question is, when you're ill, seriously ill, do you go to see the doctor, right?
Yes,
you go to see the doctor because you need professional help. And it's not just about, you feeling less of yourself or your relationship not working or you acknowledging that you failed in your relationship, because at every point in our lives, in our journey, we need help.
Yes.
So if that's what you need, seek help and you will get help.
And for that help to work out, it has to be a decision the two of you have taken, that you see this marriage. We have to be intentional about it. Where we are now is not where we want to be. Obviously, we want to have a better, blissful, joyful, wonderful relationship. And for that to happen, two of you must have that agreement, because we know it takes two to tango. Two cannot work together except they are in agreement. And we agree with you because we trust you, we believe you. We know that the capacity to move from where you are to where you want to be is there in you. It's just for you to tap it. And our responsibility as people who do this is to give you perspective, is to give you an objective view of what's going on in your marriage. And that will help you move to the next level.
So finally, maybe there are other things that you felt we didn't quite touch on in the course of discussing the signs that your marriage is in trouble. Please, if you can, put it on the comment section below. And if you know someone that would find a lot of the conversations that we've had today useful. You know, maybe they're going through a phase in their relationship and they need help. Please feel free to share this with them, and I hope that this would, you know, bring some perspective on how they can navigate that season or the season that they're currently in their relationship. And thank you all for sticking to the end. And if it's your first time and you forgot to subscribe at the start because this was so interesting, please don't forget to do that now. All right, and have an amazing day, and we will see you all on the next one. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.